Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Get connected, Fitchburg. Sign up for Fitchburg Connect, the city's monthly e-newsletter that keeps you informed about all the events, services, and updates that matter to you. Get it in your inbox once a month. Sign up today to get Fitchburg Connect.
Looks like we're all here and it's 6 o'clock, so we can get started. We'll call this meeting to order. This June 4th edition of Fitchburg Parks Commission. We'll start with taking roll. Christopher Sina, I am here. Aaron Farrell Adamani.
Here.
Christopher Peguero.
Here.
Heidi Reynolds.
Here.
Sue Easterday.
Here, and my dog's here too.
Perfect. Todd Bruner.
Here.
Joe Maldonado.
Here.
And Eric Schreiner.
Here.
All right. We have a right away off the bat, item number 1 here about the call to order. We have citizen wishing to speak, Patrick Cheney, Tarpon Lake Hills. Come on up, Patrick.
This is relevant to call to order. I know that's unusual. The Park Commission and the public, including me, who want to follow along on these agendas, need to see them in advance. And I checked last Friday and Monday and Tuesday, and the agenda was not posted yet. And I saw that the agenda was posted and the Notify Me email came out Wednesday at 11:35 a.m., which is 36 hours before this meeting. By the city's standard practice, it requires that the agenda is supposed to be posted for all the meetings of the week by noon of the Friday of the week before. By being in the week of the meeting, even though this is a Thursday, it's always been that only changes to the agenda are permitted if there's special additions or emergencies or some corrections or something to what has already been posted. So this was very odd, and I also was watching because if the agenda was not posted more than 24 hours before the meeting, this meeting would be totally illegal to hold it according to state meetings law. So I'm wondering what happened.
I can comment on that
Go
if you
ahead.
like, Chris. You are correct. That is the state required, or at least the legal requirements for 24 hours in advance postings. If you'll notice, one of our items this evening for the bid acceptance is a direct referral. We're waiting on financial review of that agenda item before it was posted. So that's why we had a delay in it. So we're going through the approval processes that are necessary for a direct referral.
And the commission, we were alerted to the fact that the agenda, there was going to be a delay in the agenda being posted. So the commission members were aware of that. Item number 2, approval of minutes. Anybody like to comment on or approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Public appearances, I'm not seeing any, and don't see any online either. Review and approve the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Agenda is approved as written. All right, discussion and action items. First up is ordinance 2026-017. Eric, if you'd like to give us a summary.
So this is more of a clerical correction to reflect what current policies or practices are and how our ordinances are enforced. What the omission in the currently existing ordinance is that pathways, the word pathways was omitted to allow people to pass through the works or the parks during those period of closing hours, as well as the omission of the central daylight time and central standard time, just to make it a standard time format. Other than that, this is more of a clerical correction.
Seemed pretty straightforward to me. Would anybody like to make a motion on approving that ordinance change?
Move to approve.
I'll move.
Second? Or is Heidi?
We'll give Heidi the second. I think she beat you to on the motion.
Oh,
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. On to Resolution R8926, and this is approving the rental policy for Hostahochi. So first, we'll kind of get a summary from Eric, and we can kind of discuss it. And our plan of attack for this item is that if we have suggestions for edits to the policy, we can amend and approve the policy. If those changes are going to be a little bit more wide-ranging or substantial, we'll table the item. Staff will take some time to make those changes and bring it back to us. So with that, Eric, if you want to just start us off with a little bit of a summary, and then we can give you some feedback.
Sure. The reason why this does not encompass a general parks rental policy is Hostahochi in and of itself is a unique facility. It has unique aspects to it that necessitate a unique rental policy to reflect that. So the space is not just a park shelter, it is a educational area, it is a multi-use or multi-purpose area as well. We have the kitchen, so some of the existing park shelter rental policies wouldn't necessarily apply for here. Other than that, currently within this drafted policy, Hostahochi would be open to civic organizations, not currently private organizations or rentals at this time. I do want to say that this is the initial implementation of a rental policy, and before we get something in place, we really can't rent it out at this point. And staff will assess, what the general uses are, the frequency of reservations, what organizations are renting it out, and perhaps the following would be adjusting this rental policy to reflect that, or potentially also including the outdoor rental facilities as well. So I would treat this more of a general implementation of a policy to get the building rentable and usable. And then at that point, we'll assess after we see what the expected use is.
Is this something that's been done before? I mean, is this a normal practice?
We don't really have a facility like this, so it's kind of one and of its own. I will say that this rental policy was mirrored, or at least the current rental policies for the library, as well as the community center and senior center were used as a template to draft this. Yes, sir.
I know in our discussions, you had told me that you have a lot of conversations with other municipalities. Are there other facilities in other cities or suburbs that are in a similar structure, as well as maybe situation with not having an attendant as Hostahochi is?
There are some infrequent, though. From my experience, there normally is an attendant, at least a part-time during or at least during rentals like this, either it be before for an actual greeting and opening up and going through the opening procedures and just the general operations of the building, as well as having that person do custodial efforts afterwards, and then just a general close-up of the building is generally what's done that I've seen. At least that's from my experience, as well as there would be an attendant. This being kind of a unique circumstance, so like if it's a community center, I would kind of treat it more like that. It's kind of hard to find a applicable one that's not staffed. I'm not aware of any that are of this extent, I suppose, of features within the building that are unstaffed. So perhaps it's something we look at as well. Is there a staffing attendant allocated? I'm not quite sure at this point, but I don't really have a good comparison because of the uniqueness of the building itself. Yes.
Is there a date set? Like, would you review this in a year, a half a year? My concern is that, this whole building in that area was billed as a need for the community. And so to read that families are unable to perhaps rent it feels concerning. Though I respect that this is all new, so to get things off the ground makes sense. However, I would feel comfortable with a date of just let's reassess so it doesn't get lost or assume that just the status quo is.
I don't have a specific date, but I think what would be reasonable is prior to summer season or peak renting season before the next year would probably be adequate. So if we can say our summer season is our peak rental period, we can say maybe we can assess something throughout the remainder of this season if there are rentals for it and reassess prior to summer season for next year. Specifically, the omission for the private organizations or private entities renting it out was specifically because of the lack of an attendant and the amount of features that are within the facility. That does go along, like I said, with opening and closing of the building, custodial efforts and needs. Our park shelters, I suppose it's not a park shelter, but if we look at it, our rental rates right now, our park shelters are nearly reserved every day, every weekend throughout the summer season, and we just don't have the capacity to have the same rental structure right now in this season.
If there's a way to earmark that as an important thing to consider next year, along with, if we can find budget for staff to fully operate the building in its original intent, that would be great, because I think, again, the location and the original intent of being a resource for the communities is paramount, and just earmarking that as potential dollars come available.
A suggestion here is perhaps at the end of the season, the end of this year, we have 6 remaining months. Like if we were to move forward with this rental policy and begin reserving this building, we do an assessment at the end of the season, like what groups are using it, what was the frequency, and just do a needs assessment or use assessment at the end of the season. Would that be adequate, and kind of come back and go through our reports, like how many rentals we had, what organizations were renting it, just for kind of an understanding of how the rest of the season went?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I did have some additional proposed language, and this would be in the disclaimer section on page 4.
If I could I please have control of the screen? I'll pull those up for you.
Okay, let's see.
The one time you leave the room.
So under the third bullet point, I wanted to propose some additional language that's a little bit stronger in regards to city endorsements. Community values and non-endorsement. The City of Fitchburg is committed to fostering a welcoming, inclusive, and respectful community for all residents. Permission to use city facilities does not constitute a city's endorsement, approval, or support of any organization's views, speech, activities, policies, or beliefs. All users of city facilities shall comply with applicable federal, state, and local laws and regulations. No facility user may engage in conduct that unlawfully discriminates against individuals, threatens public safety, incites imminent lawless action, constitutes unlawful harassment, vandalism, or property damage, or otherwise interferes with the lawful use and enjoyment of the city facilities by others. The city reserves the right to deny, suspend, or terminate facility use when there is a reasonable basis to believe that the proposed use would violate applicable laws, create a substantial risk to public safety, result in damage to city property, or materially disrupt city operations. And this is really goes along the lines of the multi-use of the building, and that the outside use could be for community could be active while the internal use of the building is happening. And it's not, I understand right to free speech, and we'd have to look at if this is something that would be legally binding if we put this in as an amendment. The second one was really an addition to priority of who we consider if there's competing desire to use the space, and this was an addition to those bullet points. So resident and taxpayer priority. Because city facilities are funded and maintained through local tax revenues, Priority for facility reservations shall be given to City of Fitchburg residents, resident organizations, local nonprofit organizations, and groups that with a substantial connection to the City of Fitchburg. Applications from non-resident individuals or organizations may be accommodated on a space available basis after residents' requests have been considered. The city may establish different reservation windows, fees, deposits, or scheduling priorities for residents and non-resident users, provided such criteria are applied in a viewpoint neutral and non-discriminatory manner. So I just thought that was important, as we want to really prioritize our taxpayers and our residents to be able to access that if there's competing issues around the scheduling.
Of course.
Yeah, Christopher and I were having a conversation about this. I'm wondering if, just put a scenario forward, like beginning of the year happens and there's a bunch of vacant spaces and just maybe different groups that are not affiliated with the city just kind of go in and book everything. Do we have do you have an idea of like a time frame or a timeline? Like is there an approval window after somebody like makes a reservation and they're not part of the city?
The way that it's set up right now is first come, first serve, right? So
Yeah,
I think
that's correct.
as long as we can align to that, and what I'm really concerned about is if there's conflict at that point, right? And two people reserve or make a request, and we have one outside group and a residential group, that we're really prioritizing a resident of Fitchburg to be able to use it. Also, I mean, we could talk deeper, and maybe it's at that later point at the end of the year. We're talking about fee structure that, we've done that for other parks and other rentable space that residents have a lower rate than outside or non-residents. So I think that would also kind of jump into that space, but I don't have another way of kind of looking at that.
I think a way around that would be residents can, let's say we're looking at February and March, maybe residents can start booking in December and non-residents in January.
I can speak to some of this. This is somewhat applicable, but I had the same reservation style with athletic field reservations as far as prioritizing, and these are not mutually exclusive, like it's not really comparable, but if we're talking about the structure of it, I previously enacted something to where local teams, school districts, and city organizations, specifically for Lake Mills, had a window to where they were able to submit their applications prior to outside entities doing that. So it has been done before, and there would be an applicable template for it. As far as enacting something like that right now, I think we would first have to see what our kind of first year operations is, and reassess it at that point. I don't know if we're going to have a large influx of reservations immediately when this is approved, or if we don't have reservations at all. So it's kind of up in the air, and we don't really have that data point yet. So I suppose I'm not quite sure.
An additional question to this.
Sure.
Sorry. Do we have any inquiries right now that we have data points for? Have we been getting a lot of calls to find out when it's going to be open and available to rent?
Not to my knowledge that I have received. Whether other city staff have received them or not, I'm not quite sure. I assume if there was a large interest in it, I at least would have been informed or updated or anything like that, but I haven't been aware of any correspondence at this point.
Last question.
No, that's okay. Absolutely.
Do we have a date for an official grand opening for the space?
We did have, well, technically the grand opening, I guess, was in November, but that was like the project completion. Regarding like building opening to the public, I don't believe so. We are still assessing, or at least going through the project completion punch list at this point. So like a punch list is any small remaining unfinished business or things that have not gone through the warranty period for contractors need to be assessed within a window. There are still some uncompleted aspects out on the property itself. I would probably propose, if we were to do an opening of something like that, that we would have all of those completed at that point, just so it's totally complete and we don't have any equipment or contractors still on the site. At least that would be my thought. Primarily, those are on the outside park features within the actual property itself. I'm not aware, or at least I wouldn't be, to any punch list items on the building itself, but that would be my thought. Is I know there are several punch list items out there that are scheduled to be completed yet. So I would think if there was a grand opening, we would do it after those have been addressed.
Heidi, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just have a question regarding the proposal that that was just put forward. And I'm wondering if that proposal is for all of the potential rental facilities in Fitchburg or just this specific one. I hesitate to single out one specific space and have the rental requirements, if you will, be different than any other space. And I'm just wondering if Christopher could maybe address that, if he's referring to just an overall change in the policy or if it's just this specific location. Thank you.
So Heidi, this policy that we're discussing here is specifically for Hosta-Hochi. Nothing that's discussed or decided, I suppose this evening, would apply to any other facilities or structures that the city owns or rents out, specifically just to this building.
Is it problematic that we would have different requirements, different disclaimers for different reservations?
I don't know the answer to that, but I would say that if we did adopt language like this, it could be a model for us to move forward with adopting the overall policies for parks and other facilities. But it looks like, Joe, you have some answers.
So I'm assuming that this isn't also specific to evaluating the cost of the fees. This is just a document standing on its own.
Correct.
Okay, so I would just say this, that later on, I'm hoping that what's coming is a review of what the fees are for Hosta-Hochi, because just for context for any other folks on this committee, myself and Alder Dantzler introduced a resolution to for the rest of this year to reduce the rental fee in half for any organization that's gotten an H&I grant, because as part of the H&I process, they waived the fee for any current recipients. So just to kind of stimulate growth, we put forth, and this was the result of an organization actually reaching out to me and saying the fees were too high, particularly in comparison to like other municipalities. So I'll say that to say I hope that we'll evaluate the actual fees themselves later in this year.
That would be different probably within the budget drafting process. We would talk about fee structures. Granted, we won't know how much is collected this season or anything like that until we go through it, but that would be the appropriate time. This is totally separate from any fee structures for the building, so they're intentionally not within this rental policy.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
One last clarifying question, Eric. Sure. Wondering, as written, the proposed language that I've set forth, would that be problematic? I know we kind of discussed it, but if there's some way to make it that it's not problematic, I would move to propose we add that language to the current policy.
I would think, and this is, I suppose, my best professional opinion at this point, is because there might be some indemnification language or something like that included with it. My recommendation on the safe side would probably be for legal review and re-inclusion of it. I know and I understand that would postpone until the next following meeting, and I think there is an aspect that's unfortunate. We want this facility to be available and rental, be able to be rented out, but that would be my recommendation at least, is that we would allow staff and our legal department to take a look at it, see what, based on your suggestions, we can include to it, and keep you posted and re-review at the July meeting for final approval.
Would I have to move that through this body for a vote to move that to legal review and staff review, or do we just do that? Okay.
No. That would be our next action. Is you have a recommendation here, some language came forward. I don't believe you'd have to make a motion on that. What it would be is basically that's our discussion up to this point on the item, is that would be the next step we would take. And if you were to make a motion to table this agenda item, on the understanding that would come back in July with some redrafted language based on your recommendation.
Would it be more appropriate? Oh, sorry. Would it be more appropriate to do that, or to approve this policy and then revise it at the next meeting?
I suppose that would be a opinion question for the commission. I suppose I really can't answer that one. My initial thoughts are a bit is I think we flesh it out fully before we enact it. Make sure it's what the commissions and what the council really wants before we publicize something. I think there could be some issues if we were to publicize a rental policy, have reservations under that rental policy, that just to have a revised policy within the next following month would be my thought.
If that's the case, then I would move to postpone this ordinance or this resolution. Yeah, this resolution, R8926, and direct staff to review the changes proposed by Commissioner Figueroa.
I'd second.
I can stop sharing.
All right, and then I had some questions on it as well, but if we're going to table it, I can write those up and send them your way.
Yes, please, if you could. If there's any recommended, well, I suppose would you be able to discuss them? I suppose.
Yeah, we could discuss it before voting to table. The couple things that I thought about were there a couple different points that had language kind of really separating the interior space from the exterior space, and I understand the practicalities of that, but the way that it's really the way that the building and the adjacent shelter were designed, it's really an extension of the other, and so I wonder if there's a way to if a rental of the interior space also includes that exterior space so folks can use it for their event, but then that space maybe itself isn't rentable on its own, so it's just first come first serve unless the building is being rented.
I think that's something we can discuss. I think initially at this point is we didn't want to have any conflicts on having them being two separately booked sections. You can separately reserve the exterior versus the interior, and that would create conflict. But I can see if perhaps it's something that we add on to a reservation if you want specific designated access to it. I suppose kind of the devil's advocate side of that is, since it is exterior of the building and somewhat of an extension of the park, should it be reservable? But if you could send any recommended language, we can take a look at it.
Sure. Yeah. I'll noodle on that a little bit. It just seems like I could foresee somebody using the community center wanting to have that patio space out back as well for some type of event. And
they still can, and they absolutely can. It is, like I said, first come, first serve. It's just a non-designated basis. Mm-hmm. So if let's say you rent to the inside of the building, you can absolutely extend your event and use the patio space in the exterior of the building on the assumption that you may not be the only designated user in that area. Other people can come and they can use the picnic tables underneath it as well. So I suppose if we were to include it within a rental policy, that would be the discussion of having designated access specifically for the renter, which I think that may cause a little bit of conflict maybe with park users. That's just kind of my thought.
Yeah, I think I don't know the correct answer to it, but it's just something for us to think about, I think.
What I can do is I can speak with staff as well when we end up doing the revision. If that is something we think about, we may be able to include something, and at that point, if it's not something that you wish to move forward with, you could actually accept as amended and omit that section that includes it too, if that makes sense procedurally.
Okay. On that, we had the motion and second to table. Is there any other discussion on it, or otherwise? Yeah.
So some details. I know I asked the question about a potential grand opening. I know that, Eric, that you have been working with Ho-Chunk in regards to the signage. Do you have any details on that? I guess that's when I was envisioning a grand opening. I was envisioning celebrating that collaboration of that signage and the official opening as something. But
yeah, I can give an update at that time. Right now, we are soliciting. We do have it designed, at least some design concepts for it as well. What we're doing at this point is, since it is a custom-made sign, this is a unique structure, unique sign. It's a one-off sign. We can't buy it off the shelf or anything like that. It is expected to be over our purchasing requirements to where we can do sole source purchasing, and we have to solicit quotes for it. We've reached out to our minimum number of quotes that we need to receive is 3. So we do have 3 vendors that are in the process of providing quotes to city staff for it. I can't speak to what the fabrication timeline is for something like that. I really don't know. So I don't really have I've never had a custom LED fancy sign created before, so I don't really have a point of reference, but we are in that process of soliciting bids, soliciting quotes.
Related to that, is there, Chris, Eric, or anybody, would we know, is there any maybe particular day or celebration date that's kind of significant to the Ho-Chunk Nation? I would imagine if it was something that could like fall on a date that had some meaning, that would be special.
I would say that's a great point, and just to note that, and as we move forward with getting through the punch list and potentially finding a date that it coincides with something that's significant, and we can keep that conversation going with the Ho-Chunk Nation.
Yep, I would definitely trust their discretion. I mean, I can't pick what that date would be. It would be at the Ho-Chunk's discretion. So,
I would just also note on a procedural way that as we engage with communities, especially First Nations or any other marginalized community, oftentimes if it's for our facility, that's an additional kind of piece. It's not only to honor them, but then we're asking them to do additional work in the honoring. So, want to be very, cognizant of how just engagement with marginalized communities or traditionally marginalized communities happen, that we're thinking about that as we're making requests that may be additional labor. So just putting it out there and tabling that so that we have a greater awareness of that and what that engagement might look like, or what that response might be. Like a no response would be totally reasonable under those circumstances. So just as we understand and grow, as we're engaging with communities, we want to serve more deeply.
All right. Do we have anything else? All right, then we did have the motion in the second. Is that right? I believe we got a second. All right, so all in favor of tabling this item for now? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Looking forward to seeing that one come back. On to item 5C. This is our 12626, acceptance of Swan Creek, and Wildwood South Athletic Court renovations. We do have a resident registration form, Patrick Cheney. Come on up.
So that I don't forget to ask this, all of you pay property taxes, right? Because this $300,000 for this has to be coming from property tax for this replacement fund. Otherwise, where does this money come from? It cannot be park dedication. So I'd like to hear more on that. I see the Swan Creek tennis courts often. It's near me. And to be very current on this, I just went back to look at it again today, although I looked at it yesterday. And I also looked at the basketball court. And this right here is intended as resurfacing Wildwood South, I believe, because I couldn't find another one, Wildwood South Prairie Park, the one with the tennis court. I went and looked at that an hour ago, too. I will agree with the part about filling in the cracks in the Swan Creek basketball court. It has a few cracks in it, okay. But the total replacement of the Swan Creek tennis court is entirely unneeded, as I've said several times before. That also just needs the cracks filled. And the shocker to me was when I went over to Wildwood South to look at that, And I thought, am I in the right park? Is this the right court? Because this thing looks new. I had to search really hard to even find any crack in it at all. So why on earth is Wildwood South Tennis Court being resurfaced? What this should be, and what somebody should have got bids on as alternates or whatever to compare, yes, fill in the cracks on the Swan Creek basketball, fill in the cracks on the Swan Creek tennis courts, because that's all it needs. Leave Wildwood out of this because there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. I don't know why it's being resurfaced. And package in as a bundle right here, resurfacing the McGaw tennis courts, of which all of these are dual stripe for tennis and pickleball, so we could have pickleball courts all over. And see what that would cost. That would be probably better, and it would certainly be a lot less than $300,000. So that's what I would like to see on here. And if you haven't individually, in person, gone on site to look at each of these yourself, you should not be voting for this.
Thank you, Patrick. All right, Eric, do you want to walk us through any of the particulars about the bids? We did see that one of them, or that they came in over what was expected, but city does have the funds to cover it.
Yeah, absolutely. I did just pull also for your references as well the funding sources. So this was previously approved within the 2026 capital funds. That would have been the approval process for last year. $250,000 is TID closure excess increment, with $44,000 being capital property tax levy. So that's our funding sources for these documents. I won't need the screen share. But this project we did have designed by Fred Kolkman LLC, who is an athletic court designer. He's definitely an industry standard when it comes to both installing new courts as well as renovating courts. The city has worked with him extensively in the past for both new courts as well as court renovations. He was the designer for the McGaw pickleball courts as well, so we've recently worked with him. It's based on his professional opinion as well as ours as staff, as well as seeing the current status of the courts. We wouldn't require an alternate or suggest an alternate to be bid if we didn't truly think that there was a necessity for it. So what we did here as well is we had the alternates, including the Wildwood South renovation, so that's a resurfacing. And then there was also the full rebuild of the Swan Creek ones. So that does include a mill overlay, new fence, new posts, everything. So it's basically a ground up total restoration or rebuild. And then the resurfacing, and what I would include as a resurfacing is the crack filling, refiberglassing, putting new athletic court surfacing onto it, repainting it. That would be a resurfacing. So our bid alternates, we're recommending approval of all the bid alternates with the exception of the bid alternate number. Let's see here. The bid alternates, my apologies here, I have another. The one for post-tension concrete, that's the one that came in excessively high. This was more of a fact-finding bid for us as well, because post-tension concrete, it's a different style of concrete rather than asphalt installation. It is, from what we found, exceptionally more expensive, but there are tensioning cables underneath the concrete that are actually put hydraulic pressure after the concrete has cured, which creates a more crack-resistant surface, longer surface, but it does have the cost to reflect that difference as well. We did budget for an asphalt resurfacing, not the actual post-tension one, so we are not recommending the alternate number 2 for Swan Creek for the post-tension concrete. So happy to answer any other questions regarding it.
Any questions?
One thing I can clarify as well is if this is approved this evening, we do have an anticipated construction schedule or construction completion requirement within this bid of October 15th of 2026. Expectation that this project would be completed this year yet with a final punch list item prior to the end of the year.
Very good. All right. Heidi, go ahead.
Hi, just 2 quick questions. So what is the typical life of those sort of surfaces, and how old is the Swan Creek one?
I can't say to the specific age of the Swan Creek one. The expected lifespan, though, and what's currently budgeted at maximum is 35 years. Realistically, anywhere from 25 to 30, I think, is acceptable in what we would have an anticipated replacement schedule on. Resurfacing occurs every, I would say, probably about 12 years is a resurfacing. It depends on the amount of use and wear that the court receives as well. But if we do a repave, so for example, the Wildwood ones as well as the Swan Creek basketball courts, they're not in rough enough condition to necessitate a total remill and rebuild, but they are at the point where we should do the crack filling, refiberglassing, and resurfacing, I guess, so we could extend their life potentially by about 10 years or so, usable lifespan. Yes, sir.
One of my kiddos actually took a tennis class through Fitchburg Parks last year at Swan Creek, and we had a couple days that were a little rainy, but there was definitely pooling of water in some of the areas. But I forgot my question. Oh my God, my brain just stopped. Come back to me. I have a question.
Okay, Todd.
Are these being resurfaced based on a preordained schedule? I'm sorry if I missed that, or because of an inspection.
So this was included within the CIP for general tennis court resurfacing. At that point, we were able to pick which ones necessitated out of review of our existing courts. We did do a budget amendment at the end of last season. During this process, it made financial sense if we were going to have other athletic court surfacing projects, being the basketball court at Swan Creek and being the Wildwood one, to do a budget amendment to allow those additional funds in expectation of completing them. So it was kind of a culmination of both, I guess.
So you're saying it needs it?
We wouldn't propose replacement if it did not.
Yep.
And like I said, that's also consistent with what staff's opinion is, as well as what the designer recommends. I mean, this is his industry expert knowledge regarding tennis courts, athletic court surfaces in general. I will say public correspondence-wise, all the things that are recommended here for approval, we have received public correspondence on supporting the change of it and requesting the change for it. And I would say it's generally approved by what public correspondence we have had. People have requested specifically the restoration and renovations of all of the referenced courts here.
So remember, it was not a question. It was more of a comment to say, yes, I have seen them with my kids and would support the resurfacing and renovations.
Now, if Swan Creek wasn't at the point of a total rebuild, then we would pursue, the resurfacing, crack filling, et cetera. It is at that point, due to the grades, the changing in the grades, to Chris's point, there are areas that hold some water as well, shifting base course, et cetera, that it's at the point of necessitating a mill and overlay. Sue? Sue, check your mic.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. I just wanted to mirror some of the other comments that the Swan Creek one is in pretty bad shape. And I talked with some parents that said their lessons had to be relocated at times, depending on how much water was pooling. And as far as at Wildwood South, that's my neck of the woods. And while it looks like it's in good condition, it will stay in good condition if this work is done, because the cracks are there, they need to be dealt with. And the reason we have so many tennis courts that ended up falling apart was this type of maintenance was not common in the past. So this is to keep what we've got and have it last a little longer.
Yep. Thank you, Sue. I would absolutely agree with Sue's point. Something that has an expected lifespan of 25 years, we may be able to extend a little bit further and defer full replacement in favor of doing periodic resurfacing.
Yep. All right. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Communication, we don't have any communication items, but we do have staff reports and updates. Anything you'd like to call our attention to in there, Eric?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go down the list here. Specifically for our parks maintenance, I want to give a shout out to our staff regarding the repair and I think timely repair of the splash pad at McKee Park. So in their process of performing their preparations for the season, there were 3 leaks that were identified underneath concrete within the splash pad. I do want to note that staff actually located those leaks themselves in collaboration with the utilities department. I think they did a fantastic job, one, locating them and also restoring them within a timely manner. So it was just a several-day turnaround for it. But I do want to commend staff for that to get it up and running as soon as possible. Thank you to our communications department who included the public notices forum. But I'm very glad to say that it's up and running, and hopefully we can continue it for that season. So it was absolute full team effort to get that going. There was several instances of storm damage cleanup on May 18th and 19th. And one thing I also like to point is we did have park staff attend flagger safety training. I think that's a very important training, especially as we work on terrace trees or anything within the right-of-way, for staff to be as safe as possible when they're performing roadside work. For our forestry department, spring planting was complete on schedule, and that included 263 trees planted. We do have our intern for that position, or forestry assistant basically, that has been assisting with a lot of the warranty work for it. But I would like to commend Anna and all those involved for pursuing and completing a successful spring planting season. And then last, some of the upcoming items that are new, I'd like to touch base on. The communications department has assisted quite a bit in creating park spotlight news releases. This was suggested, I believe, by Joe and a couple others. Was it? Yeah, and I think you were included. I think it's a great idea. The communications department has already put together a brief publication for shareable, basically shareable content to show, advertise, publicize some of our parks. Just some people may not even know what recreation features are within all of our parks. So it's just to create people general understanding, like, did you know there's a bike path in this park, or did you know so-and-so recreation feature exists? The first one will be for McKee Park. I also plan to use this as a general outreach to the public as far as anticipated construction projects. So if there's something new occurring within a park or coming forward, this is probably the avenue that I would include those releases as well. Yes, sir?
So on that, I think it would be an awesome idea if there could be some sort of feature on the website, or when we first make a post about this series, that if residents have their own stories, that they can submit them.
Cool.
Like if they have like a picture or some like kind of Humans of New York type thing. And then maybe if a communication can go out to our commission and maybe other committees to say, like, if you love Fitchburg parks, you know, send a photo of yourself or your kids or family enjoying the park, or what features that you like, or something like that. Some
Awesome.
user-generated content.
Yeah. No, good idea. It's something that I'll work with our communications department on. Again, this is something that I continue doing. I would like to continue doing, especially during peak parks visitation. I would have the expectation maybe we do a publication a month at least to kind of see how this goes, but I would continue it throughout the year as much as possible. Yes, sir.
So, Sue, can I jump in front of you in regards to the communication piece here? Thank you. I have not looked most recently at the communications, but are we actively translating in language like Spanish?
With these, I don't believe so. If that draft was changed, I don't think that would be a huge ask to do that. Again, let me talk to my communications department. They're the graphic design and publication experts, so I'll defer to them, but I can bring that comment up with them.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Sue?
I have 2 questions for Eric, because I see he's getting ready to work on the operating budget. They're unrelated questions, so I'll just ask them both and then cut my mic. They're both on the last page of the packet. That's where you mentioned you're working on operating budgets, proposal ideas. First question, what does it cost for one summer intern, for example, the person working with Anna this year? The second question is that I know that this year Anna Healy is working, or will be working, on the woodlot management policy and internal document. And so would that mean then for year 2027, there may be dollars budgeted to actually manage woodlots?
I wouldn't be able to speak specifically on the first question. I think it depends on what the length of service of that position is. That's something that we'll assess, though, to see if we can potentially extend the service of an assistant position within that role for a budget proposal for 2027. Now, regarding your woodlot management policy, that is something that I will be included within an operational budget proposal, is having woodlot management funds. So staff is writing the proposed woodlot management policy, but we actually need the labor and contract service funds to fund said program. We can write, in my opinion, as many policies and stuff as we want, but without having budget to actually enact that work, there's not much substance or anything behind it as well. So if woodlot management is indeed a priority, this is something that I will be proposing for the 2027 operational budget. What those funds are yet at this point, I'm not quite sure exactly what that number is. That'll be fleshed out as we start beginning our drafting process.
All right. Any other questions or comments on staff reports?
Unless anybody has any other questions.
No? All right. Future agenda items. Other than that, we know we'll be seeing, why is it escaping me? Kids Crossing relatively soon, and that's the only one that comes to my mind that we'll see.
Kids Crossing, and then we do have the revised version for the Host-Ohochi rental policy coming up in the July one as well. So now for Kids Crossing, I have talked with some staff, and we were thinking of including it within the July Parks Commission meeting. However, I would also like to explore the idea and see what people think as far as having a dedicated PIM, so like a public input meeting, just so we can specifically solicit input for that concept design. I'm not quite sure yet if we're going to include that specifically on the July Parks Commission meeting, or if we would have a special session for Parks Commission meeting titled a PIM, public involvement meeting, where we just focus on that concept and solicit input. It will be in July sometime, but like I said, we'll figure out if that will be on the agenda or a different specific date for it. If that is the case, that we're doing a separate date, I will reach out to all the Parks Commission members to see what availability is, and I assume that date will be dependent on what availability is as well. Since it would be a PIM, if we were to go that route, we would not need a quorum for anything, but I think it would. You guys would generally be interested in attending that meeting, so I'll talk with staff again and see if that's how we're gonna kind of pursue it. I can see both ways of it.
And if it does land on our regular agenda, I would say we should make a strong effort to keep the rest of the agenda light, because yes, we'll have to spend a lot of time on that.
I agree. That would be my intent as well. We keep a fairly light agenda with the assumption that we'll spend the majority of our time discussing that concept.
So a PIM would be well advertised throughout the community, even at Kids Crossing with signs to make sure people
intentionally soliciting input for it, yes.
That would be a great time to make sure it is in multiple languages too, that kind of advertisement.
Noted. Yep. Perfect, thank you.
That would be really exciting.
I think
be a part of it.
Yeah, I think that there could be something to be said for a separate public input meeting being, this can all feel very rigid and formal and make people uncomfortable. And it might sort of be a more friendly conversation if it's more informal. The design team can give a presentation, can have a Q&A session. It might just feel a little bit more welcoming.
I would also add that if it can be shared with our 3 school districts and directed to be put in newsletters for every elementary, middle school, usually there's newsletters to the parents.
Typically a summer one that would go out in June. And that would
yeah. So any school in which we know that Fitchburg kids are in the attendance area of, whether or not that school's in Fitchburg.
And then I'll make a plug for making sure the CEAC is also included in that communication, since they have important connections in the community. And that's the Community Equity Advisory Committee.
Sounds good. I generally think that I suppose, like I said, I'll talk with staff, but I do see the benefits in maybe having a little bit more of a fluid, open format to it, or discussion-based. So I would definitely expect it to be in July.
Would this communication encourage kids to actually come forward with their ideas, or is this more for adults to come forward?
I don't know how we'd specifically target kids. I mean, we could definitely make it as eye-catching and I suppose excitable for kids to view. I would definitely like to see kids' input. The way that I look at it is we can look at concepts and designs for playgrounds, but I think it is important to also get input from kids who are actually going to be the ones interested in it. What I think is really cool may not be what an 8-year-old thinks is really cool, so I think it'd be cool to solicit that input if we can. Sorry.
So just to plug in, it may not be applicable for this year. We did approve the future development of a youth commission, so that could potentially be for future projects as we design a way to solicit input of youth. Oh, and also if you want to swing by Youth Government Day or week, that may be an activity that the kids that attend might be interested in.
So I'll keep all the commissioners updated, kind of what we do decide as staff. I'll speak with the consultants as well and see what works best for us and what our next actions are, but I'll keep you all informed how we're going to proceed with Kids Crossing Review. Yes, sir.
Very exciting.
That's good.
I'll make a last plug if I can. So tomorrow we'll be doing a pride flag raising here at 12:30 in front of City Hall, and there's an upcoming Juneteenth flag raising as well in coming weeks. Joe, do you have the dates on that? I thought I did. But in case anyone would like to attend, we'd love to have the public and folks on this committee at both those events.
That's tomorrow at 12:30?
Tomorrow at 12:30 for the pride flag raising event. And then try to get some information on the Juneteenth. I think it's 17th at 3:30. Thank you, 17th at 3:30.
The pride flag raising is actually at noon, so just
thank you.
Yeah, and if you show up at 12:30, we'll have finished it already.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, and then announcement, our next meeting is July 9th, which is not, we moved the date, so it is not the typical first Thursday of the month next month. It is the second Thursday to avoid the holiday, so
Sure.
July 9th.
May I promote something I've mentioned before?
Please.
Next Thursday, June 11th, popsicles in the park, 4:30 to 6 p.m. at Hegel Jamestown Park. So there's going to be a lot of vendors, a lot of potentially music, popsicles, and potentially food trucks.
Great.
Thursday, June 11th, 4:30 to 6 p.m.
That's next week, right?
Yep, last day of school.
All right, do we have any other announcements? If not, then I will take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second. Chris got the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 And that was unanimous. We are adjourned at 6:57. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.